and welcome to Ivanti Service Manager Workflow Training. In this session, we'll take a look at what a workflow is. We'll take a look at some uses and examples. We're going to create a workflow of our own. We'll learn how to validate a workflow to make sure it's correct. We're going to learn how to edit a workflow. We will learn how to publish and unpublish a workflow. And then finally, from the user interface or service desk console, we're going to learn how to view a workflow. So let's get started. Okay, so let's take a look at what a workflow is. Basically, a workflow is a way to automate different actions within the system. So a workflow is triggered when somebody either creates a record or updates a record and then hits the Save button. Let me open up Incident over here. And a workflow can do pretty much everything that a quick action can do. So with the quick action, we run it from, buttons and from menus here. But what the workflow will do is run it automatically when the criteria is met and after somebody hits the Save button. So let's take a look at some examples of a workflow. One example would be when we create a new incident. If the customer is a VIP, then we might change the priority number to a 1. Okay, let me just open this up. All right, so the customer's record here, if I go over here to the employee object for Joe Mayo, here we have VIP, and if I check that box there, okay, so what I can do is I can create a workflow that when an incident is created for this customer, we can see that he's a VIP. Let me go back to incidents here. Okay, and I can say, well, we want to change the priority number to a 1. Okay, now with this one here, the way the priority number is set is it's using a business rule and it's calculated based on the urgency and the impact. So there's two ways to make it a priority 1. You could go in and make your urgency high and your impact high and then let the business rule update the priority number. Or you could skip those both together and then just make the priority number a 1. The argument against going and just making that a 1 is if somebody's going back and they're looking at the record, they might not understand how that number, the priority 1 was achieved if they don't see high and high right here. So a couple different ways. Another example of a workflow would be when an incident is created, the workflow can take a look at the service, or it can take a look at the service and the category, and if a certain condition is met, it could automatically create a task for a team. Okay, so we're going to take a look at building those two workflows. So a workflow is tied to the business object. We're going to use incident as our example. Just close these for now. Okay, and the workflow is created in the configuration console. So I need to be able to get to the configuration console. I'm going to change my role to administrator. And now I've got the button here that's going to take me to the configuration console. All right, so I'm going to go to the business object. I can go right here, or I can come over here, and it's in alphabetical order. Okay, and here is incident. All right, so over here you're going to see workflows. Now just a note here, this is one way of actually creating workflows. You can also, if you didn't go to the business object, you've got an area over here where it says workflow as well, and you can create and edit and take a look at the workflow log, things like that from there. But I'm just going to do it from the business object. So I'm going to come over here to workflows, and now you can see the existing workflows, and I'm going to choose add new. and then I'm going to give my workflow a name. I'm going to call mine VIP customer. Okay, and then save. So this is going to be my workflow. It's called VIP customer. Down here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a version or several versions of the VIP customer workflow. Now with the workflows, you can only have one version of this workflow running at a time. You can have, as many workflows as you want, but only one version of each of the workflows. Let me come back over here real quick. All right, so now I've got 4 workflows, and I can have one version of each of these running if I want to. All right, let's come back in here, and let's go to Add Version. Okay, it brings up a work area for us, and then on the left-hand side, you'll see blocks. Then over here, these are divided up. Let me just collapse these so we can see. Okay, there's different areas here. It doesn't matter where something is. You can use it when you're building your workflow. So the first thing that I want to put on my workflow is I want to put a start and a stop. So I'm going to go to my controls, and then here you're going to see start and stop. You just simply take it and drag it out to the workspace. Okay, doesn't matter where you put it. You can put it anywhere you want. Okay, let me collapse that. All right, the other thing is we're going to pull some actions out, but you know what? I'm going to go up here to configuration, and I'm going to set this up so we can see here when we're going to run it. It doesn't matter if you set this up first or if you do it at the end or in the middle like I'm doing. It doesn't matter. You just need to have this running and configured, otherwise it's not going to run the workflow. So over here, so if context object, so whatever record that we're looking at, is created or updated, or you can do both. So let me start off with the updated. Now if I choose updated, then I do have to fill out this area right here. Okay, so if what's updated, is it a specific field is updated? So down here I could put the expression. I could put if it's I don't know, if it's a service field and it equals this, something like that, then it's going to run the workflow. So that's an option. Or I could say if any field is updated. Now when you choose any field updated, you're going to get this message right here, this warning letting you know that if you don't set up a condition down here, it could result in an infinite trigger loop. Now the gotcha here is that even after you put a field down here, let me put in status equal to, and let's put in active. Okay, something like that. So even after I put that in there and it does meet the criteria, it's not going to make that message go away. So just an FYI. Now, you've also got here, you can add, so if the following field, conditions are true, you can add to that. So I've got and in my or, so I can choose leave it on and, click my plus, and then I can set up another, set of criteria right here. Okay, so the other option is using created. You can see you can use both, but let me just uncheck that. So now I'm just saying if a record is created, more specifically if an incident record is created, and then you can set up your criteria here for when you want this workflow to run. So I'm going to say if an incident is created, and I'm going to say if the status is not equal to, and remember the value over here, it needs to be exact and there's no drop down. So I'm going to go to my incident business object and then take a look at the different statuses that I have to choose from. So I'm going to say if it's not resolved. So I'm just going to copy that, and then I can get out of this record without saving it. So it goes back to active. Okay, so down here I'm putting in resolved. All right, and treat this as exact, meaning case sensitive. Okay, so now on my workflow on the left hand side we have blocks. And we're going to start up here with actions. We'll take a look at some of the more commonly used blocks. However, you can look these up in the help file and get, descriptions and some examples of how they're used, even syntax if you want. So the first one, this one's extended task, and I want to point out that in the product you're going to see it a couple different ways. You'll see extended, and then you might also see external. Let me just open one of these up here. And there's a tab here. Now I opened this tab earlier, but if you don't see it on yours, which you probably won't, just go to the plus sign and then you can, select it. So over here you see that we've got external task. Over here, it's extended task. So treat them as if they're the same thing. And basically what you could do by creating an extended task is some people work with vendors and they send a task straight from the ISM system, to the vendors. And then, of course, you're taking values from certain fields and putting them into that task so the vendor knows what's needed. Okay. Let me come back over here. The archive, this is something your consultants will talk to you about, recommend a way to archive your system when it's time. Insert child. So if I go to the user interface here and I'm on my incident, I'm on an incident record, these tabs down here, these are other business objects and they're considered children to the incident business object. So I've got task and then I've also got problem. Well, in this case here, incident's the parent, and then these are the children down here. I put problem down here so that I could show you also, if I click on problem, open one of these up, okay, and then here's my incident tab. So in this case, problem is the parent and incident is the child. Okay, so if I did something like that, insert child object, just double click on this header here, and it's going to open up the dialog box. Now what you're going to see over here is you're going to see a list of the relationships that are part of the incident business object. And so if I scroll down a little, let me just move this over, okay, and I'm going to do a note. Oops, let me try that again. All right, so as I scroll down, I'm looking for, okay, let me just go right up here. So the notes are part of the journal business object. So over here I've got journal, and if I come down here, here I have notes. So when I select that, now the fields that I'm seeing over here would be the fields I'd see in the user interface. Just open that up if I did add and notes. Okay, so again, I can fill this out here and fill it out at the same time in the business object. So let's say my category is going to be emailed customer. Okay, now you'll notice none of these are required, so you're just filling in the ones that you want to. So over here, I'm looking for the category. Oops, which is right there. All right, so when you select this, I clicked on category, that is now selected. And then here where it says value, you want to come down below that. It's kind of set up like columns. And then here, I'm going to see the different categories that are available. So I'm going to choose emailed customer. And let's say in the source, well, that's probably email, right? So I'm going to choose email. So I'm going to come over here to source. And again, click under value and make your selection. Oops, let me try that again. Okay. And we'll leave duration alone. We'll do the publish to self-service. Now this is a logical field, so a lot of times you'll see a checkbox. If the box is checked, it's storing true in the database. If it's not checked, it's storing false. You might also see like, in, out, off, on, yes, no, all those would be logical. But the true and false is what's stored in the database. All right, so over here it's actually called Publish to Web. There it is. Go down to the value, and I'm going to put in true, so it will check that box for me. And let's say I also want to put a summary in. I don't know, something like that. All right, so over here I'm looking for my subject. Go over here to value, paste that in there. Okay, oops, I don't think my source held. There we go. Let's make sure everything, the category didn't hold either. I must have clicked off of it. Emailed customer. All right, so I'm going to save that. Okay, now you're not really able to tell what this is doing just by looking at it. So if you open up the block again, okay, we skipped over this title up here, and if we put something in the title, then you can look at the workflow without opening every block to see what it does. So this one's going to be email customer. Now all of this isn't going to show in the block, but it will show in a tooltip. So let me save that. Okay, so there's the block, and you'll see what it says. If you kind of hold steady on that, then you're going to see what it actually says there. And so then with that block, you'd say, okay, well after it emailed, sent the email, you'd take the OK and then go on to another block. If it failed, you can do something else. You can have it email the admin or something like that. I don't know, just whatever you really want to do. Anything you can do with a quick action. All right, so I'm going to take that one off, and that was insert child object. Create object. A good example of that would be, okay, in here we happen to have a button that will take information from this incident and put them into a new problem record. So we can see that there. So that's a good example of create object. Okay, so I'm going to double click on the header here, and I'm going to put a title in, create problem from incident. All right, and then same thing, you're going to look at the fields here and figure out what values you want to have put in there. So in my summary field, all right, but over here, sorry, I didn't select this. I have to choose problem over here. Okay, now again, when I choose problem, I see the problem fields here. But over here on the left, there's incident, and I can see the incident fields right here. So I'm creating a problem record, but I'm going to take values from the incident fields and put them into that problem. So the first one we were looking at is the summary. And so I am going to come over here to the summary field. Scroll up a little bit here. Oops, sorry. Okay. And then if I want to take a value from the incident, I'm just going to do the summary field from over here. Now these do not have to match. They don't have to be the same fields. They have to be the same type, as in text or number, things like that, but they don't have to have the same field names or values. So over here where it says summary, I've selected that. And then I'm just going to take this and I'm going to drag it over to, so I'm underneath the value column there, and release. Okay. And then let's say I want to do the same thing with the description. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look for the description field right there, select it, and then over here this is our symptom description. I'm just going to take that, again, underneath value here, and there we go. So what else do I want to fill in? Well, the status, let's go ahead and, it's going to fill that in for you, but I'm just going to go ahead and put it in myself so I know that it's going to be correct. The only reason it wouldn't be is if somebody changed like business rules, so they wouldn't put logged there. So now when I click under the value here, I've got the drop down and I can select something there. Okay, let's do a category. So how about, I don't know, we'll say accessibility. So over here we're looking for category, and then under value click, and there's your options. Okay, and let's do source. So we'll say we heard about this from an incident, so I'm going to choose incident management. Underneath value, select incident management. All right, so now I'm going to save that. Okay, so now we've got the block and it's got the heading telling us what it's going to do. And then if you opened it up, you'd you'd see the settings there. All right, let me take that off. Actually, I'll leave it for now. Maybe I'll use it. So that one was the create object block. Another one used would be, or popular, is the run for child. And an example of that would be maybe, okay, in the incident we want to say, okay, well when the status gets set to, resolved, we want to make sure all the tasks are completed. Now you really probably wouldn't automate something like that, but we'll use that as our example. So over here, I just pulled out the one that says run for child. Reminder, incident's the parent, and then the task over here would be the child. So I'm going to, on this incident, I'm going to run that workflow against the tasks there. So over here, let me double click, whoops, and I'll give it a title. Okay, something like that. So the relationship, this is where I'm picking out what the child is. And the child we said was the task. So down here I've got incident contains task. And then over here I'm seeing quick actions that were created for the task business object. So here we have these. Now what we're doing with the incidents is we're using task assignment. So I'm going to come down here and I'm looking for complete and task assignment. So when this hit on the workflow, it would look at all of the tasks for that incident and mark them as complete. But you can also set up a condition. So if it contains task and the tasks are, we're marking them as complete, but which ones? So over here I can say the status, and then let's just choose not equal to, and then I can put complete there, and then save. All right? Okay, so run for search is going to look at the searches that have been created for the incident business object. And what I could do is run a quick action for the search results. So here you're going to see the different searches that you have for the incident business object. Maybe, actually all the searches really. Let's say, about overdue tasks. Okay, so now down here I'm seeing quick actions that have been created for the task business object. Okay, now of course this is going to do it for all of the tasks in the system, so you probably wouldn't want to do that, but you can see that you can run a search, and remember when the workflows run, if an incident is created or saved or both, and certain criteria is set, then you can have this run. So you can use it in a lot of different situations there. Okay, task. So task, yes, that's a child to the incident, but it's got its own block here. So I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to say task for something like that. Okay, so in here, again, just do the same thing. You're creating a task. You've got your summary field, it's required, and your team is required. So let's do the team first. So I'm going to choose desktop support. So down here where it says team, I'm going to choose desktop support. Okay, now I'm going to finish filling in the details. So task summary, can't type. I don't know, something like that. Okay. Select that. Come over here. Okay. Task details. Oops. Okay, something like that. Now over here I've got the incident business object, and if I expand that, I see the different fields. So customer says I could look over here for my detail field and drag that over. Oops, I was going to have it here. So you can combine, you're putting in text and then also taking values from the incident itself. All right, it knows what the relationship is, incident and task, so we don't have to do anything there. I'm going to save this for a minute here. And I want to point these out right here. These are exits, and so all of these have to be connected to something. So I'm going to come back over here and open this up. And let's say I'm going to go to my exits over here. You can create your own exits. You can look at the existing ones. So that field is a drop down. So I've got the different drop downs here. And I'm going to say that once this task has been accepted. So I'm going to leave this one here, but I'm going to get rid of the others. So if you click on this X, it's just deleting each of these. So now I just have accepted. Now I can call it anything I want. That's what you're going to see on the exit. And then here you're just setting up the criteria so the system knows what's considered accepted. All right, so I've got accepted. Now you've got a couple of other things here as well. You've got your accepted, timed out, and timed out. Some of these you'll see when we do the service level management, the time to accept and time to complete different tasks. Okay, so now over here we've got the priority. In the user interface, when I create a task, it's giving it a priority 2 as a default. So if I didn't put anything, it's going to give it that priority. Or I can come in here and I can give it, we'll say it's a priority 3. Okay, or you could have had a field that's on the incident that indicates that. Right here. So it's going to take the priority from the incident and put it over here. But the tasks and the actual incident aren't always the same priority numbers there. Accept timeout date. So we do have, in our service level agreements, how much time we need to, before we accept something. So over here you could pick the field, something like that. All right, and I'm going to save that. So then you're just telling it what to do, for each of these different exits there. So that was a task. Another commonly used would be update. Okay, so I mentioned earlier doing a workflow. I'm just going to open this up over here, where if the customer was a VIP, that it's going to make the priority a 1. So I could go to the priority and just make that a 1, or in this case, I'm going to do the urgency and the impact. So over here, okay, so update object, and I'm just going to put, actually I'll call it VIP customer, something like that. Okay, so over here I see the different fields, and so I'm looking for my urgency and my impact. And then the value over here, I'm going to make it high. And impact, click under value, and I'm going to make that one high. Okay, and save that. All right, so now I've got, okay, so I've got it making them a VIP. Get approval, that's the one that we do in the request offering class. You can use it in here as well, but I won't bore you with it a second time. Automation, here's some different things that we can do. We've got invoke for child, invoke workflow. So again, these are ones that would have a relationship over here. All right, so here, what is the child that we're going to invoke this for? So is it a task? Is it, you're going to figure that out. And again, I'll just do task because it's pretty common. And then what workflow do you want to run against it? And then you can set up your criteria so it knows which ones to run against. Okay. So many possibilities. I'm going to click on the X to get rid of that. And then invoke workflow. Now you're going to see from time to time there's some workflows that have a lot of blocks on there. Well, you'll also notice that there's some things that seem to repeat themselves in different workflows. For example, when we were doing the request offering, whenever the request was done, we would change the status to fulfilled. So you could just have one workflow that changes the status to fulfilled and then call that up within all your other workflows. So you're not repeating the work each time. Okay, so here, this would be the relationship, or is it going to be the one that I'm currently on, which is incident? I could choose a relationship, and then tell it which workflow to run. Okay. Oh, I should also point out there's another thing here. Also, do you want it to wait for that workflow to finish or not? So that's up to you, and you can check the box there. Notification, this is just an email. Okay, so you've got the address book, everything just like we do in the user interface. We can put all that in there. You can put, if you want to have like the incident number or something like that in there, incident number, and then you've got your field codes over here. And so if I'm looking for the incident ID, and just drag that over there. And then again, you can drag the values from the fields as well. So the notification is an email. Oops. Quick action. So you don't have to use all the blocks in here to create the workflow. If you've got a quick action that does what you want, you can just call that up within here. So if I go to quick action, I'm going to see the quick actions that have been created for the incident business object. Just double click on the header, and here we can see all the different quick actions. Close that. Run program. A type of quick action was to run a program. So if we had one created, we'd see it here. And we don't have any created for incident, so we're not seeing any, but you would. Let's get those off of there. You could take values from, the incident record and then put them on the form that's in the web service there. So you've got your URL, put your service name, your operation name, and scroll down a little bit. And so you can put additional information in here. Okay, let me collapse that one. Finally, we have controls. And so this is where we got our start block and our stop block. We do have, let me move this over. Now to link these together, you're just going to go to the exit. In this case, it's the little arrow there. And you're going to drag to the heading of a block. So I'm just, there, come on. Okay, and then for this one, let's say once it's accepted, we stop, things like that. So you're just dragging those over. Now to get rid of one of these, you just take your mouse pointer and put it right on the tip of it and click. When it turns red, hit delete on your keyboard. Okay, all right, so first off, we have an if statement. So remember, we set up the criteria here, but we could only use and or. We can only do, these would all be ands or they'd all be ors. So there might be another condition you want to set up in here. So if this is true, and then it also checks something else. So double click in here. Okay, and here we could put if customer is VIP. Okay, and then how do we know that? We have a field called is VIP, and if that's equal to true. So right there, that would mean that when the incident was created, remember we select the customer? Well, if we looked at the customer's record, if we see this box checked, then that means, the customer is a VIP. Okay, if they are, you can have it go one direction. If they're not, it can go another direction. Just click on that and get rid of it. The join block. Now, the join block doesn't really do anything on its own, but what you can do is, let's say that I came in here and I created this task. Let's get rid of these. And I also created another task here. So I could have this, let me link it to this one and this one. So what this is going to do is when the workflow starts, it's going to create both of these tasks. And we're going to say that once this is accepted, it's going to take the next step, which maybe is just to stop. Okay? And then maybe this one over here, once it's completed, it's going to stop. Okay? Now, when the workflow runs, it's going to create both of those tasks. When this one is accepted, it's going to come over here and stop. That's going to stop the workflow. The workflow doesn't care that this one's not done. Okay, it's just going to follow this. Okay, we're at stop. So where a join block comes in handy, let me get rid of this line. Come on. Can't get it. There we go. Delete. All right, so where a join block would come into play, I like to think of it as a waiting room. So for this one, we're saying once it's accepted, it's going to come over here. We'll pretend this doesn't have a whole bunch of exits. It just has completed. So then once this one's completed, it's going to come over here. So what the join block does is once everything that's connected to the join block meets there at the join block, then it's going to take the next step. So then it can stop. So that just makes sure that both of these are getting completed or timed out or whatever they need to do. Okay, so that was the join. We know what the start and stop do. The switch would be if you want to put in your own criteria. Maybe there's nothing there that you see that you want to use. You could come in here, okay, and you've got your title and your description, but over here you've got your exits configuration. So over here, if I were on my incident, and let's say there's a specific value that I want it to look for, and it's just easier if I do it this way. Let's say if the summary contains labels or something like that. So over here, what I could do, let me put in labels, and then over here I would select the field. Okay, and then, not begins with, I need contains, and then labels. Something like that. All right, so you can set your own up. Let me get rid of this one. Okay. And so it's going to look for that criteria, and move on. Wait and wait for child. So wait, I'm going to give you a little scenario over here. So let's say that I create this incident and I'm talking to the customer on the phone. And let me just do a brand new one. Whoops. Okay. And I'm putting in what he said. Some information in here. He's telling me all about the issue that's going on. Okay. And then out of, habit, I hit save. Well, remember, as soon as you hit save, it wants to run the workflows. So over here, we might not want it to do that because we might have this workflow creating a task for another team. We don't want that to take place right away. So you could use a wait block, okay, and I can say, well, I want it to wait, maybe 10 minutes. So I've got my duration. I put my 10 minutes in there, and then you can set your condition up. So if I wait 10 minutes and the status okay, is not equal to, and let's say resolved. Okay, so it waits, the status is not equal to resolved, then it can take the next step. And then there's also wait for child. So remember, the child would be the tabs on the bottom, so maybe a task. Okay, and so you're telling it which child by picking the relationship. Let's do our tasks again. Okay, so how many children should satisfy the condition? So is it going to be if all of the tasks, any, or a certain number? And then timeout, so how long are we waiting? We'll say another, we'll just do 10 minutes again. Okay, how about 1 day and 10 minutes? Okay, and then you've got your conditions set up here. So how many should satisfy that? And I said all. So we'll say the status. Okay. We'll say equal to, and then we'll do complete. All right, so wait for child block properties. So we're telling it what the child is. We're telling it how many of the child records have to match that criteria. And then we're setting our timeout for how long, and then finally setting up the condition there. And you've got your exits over here that you can create. Now the last area over here, integration, this one here, a lot of these work with other products that we have here at Ivanti. So if you want to, when your consultant's setting you up, they'll probably set some of these up for you, but only if you have the product. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to build a workflow. So I'm going to get rid of some of these. Okay, so the workflow that I'm going to build is going to change the status, the priority to a 1. So it's going to change the urgency and impact if the customer is a VIP. So over here, I'm going to go to my action over here. And I'm going to do my update. Actually, it doesn't matter what order. Let me look at the configuration first. Okay, so I'm saying if it's created and the status is not equal to resolved. Okay, so now I'm going to come in here and actually I'll put in an if statement. Okay, so if VIP. Okay, and how does it know if it's a VIP? Well, we've got a field called is VIP, and so if that's equal to true, meaning the box is checked, so there's our if statement. So if they are a VIP, I'm going to run the update quick action, or action. Double click up here. Come on. All right, something like that. So over here, I'm looking for the urgency. I'm going to click under value right here, and I'm going to make that a high. Okay, I'm going to find urgency over here, and then under the value, I'm going to select high. And then I'm also going to look for the impact right there. Click under the value column and high. Okay, so let me just save that. All right, so that was doing an update. So after it's done with the update, you can have it, do something else. All right, so this one's going to start, and it's going to check to see if the customer is a VIP. If they are, so I'm going to take my true and drag it over here. If they're not, maybe I just want to stop. So I take the false and I just choose stop. I'll move that a little there. Okay. And is there anything else I'm going to update? Nope, I don't think so. So once this has made it, it's run the update, it's going to stop. And then failed, I'm just going to have it stop there as well. But this is where you might have it, like I said, email the admin or something like that so they can look into why, that this failed. But we're just going to put it on failed for now.